Council. And the meeting now has officially started, and I'm going to turn it over to Stella to do the preliminary part of the meeting.
Thanks, Len. Just get my slides up. Can everyone see that okay?
Yeah.
All right. So welcome everyone to the July meeting, as Len said. To get us started today, I'll just go through some notices. First, our notice of non-discrimination. You're invited to participate in our transportation planning process, regardless of your race, color, national origin, including limited English proficiency, religion, creed, gender, ancestry, ethnicity, disability, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, veteran status or background. You can read the full notice of your rights and protections at www.bostonmpo.org/MPO_non_discrimination. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Zoom products are compliant with exceptions with the following standards: Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 Level AA standards and revised Section 508 standards. If you require any additional accommodations in order to participate fully in this meeting, please contact me, Stella Jordan of MPO staff at sjordan@ctps.org. Apologies that the email address is not showing up well on the slide, or at 857-702-3675. And some guidelines. All participants will join the meeting with muted microphones. Please rename yourself to include your first name, last name, and affiliation. You may mute and unmute yourselves during the meeting, but please do remain on mute unless you're actively speaking. And to participate in the discussion, please select the raised hand function. You can find this either by clicking on the participants button at the bottom of the screen and a window will pop up with a raised hand button, or you can find it in the reactions button in the toolbar and the chair will call on you. If you're joining us by phone, you can also use *9 to raise your hand. And if you have any technical difficulties or questions, please contact me via the chat box at sjordan@ctps.org or at 857-702-3675. And that I'll pass it back to Len to get us started, and I can drop the slides anytime, Len.
Sure, thank you. You can drop the slides. Yeah, so the first thing on the agenda, folks, is to talk about our comment letter for the LRTP, the Long Range Transportation Plan. And Betsy is only going to be able to, well, actually, you know what? Let me back up and first do public comments, I guess. And we have few enough people that we can also do a round of intros. So let's start with the intros, and then see if there are public comments, and then hop into the letter. I was getting a little ahead of myself because I know that Betsy can be here only for like the first half hour, so I wanted to see if people had questions for her. So you can be thinking about that as we do our intros. So I will call on folks. John Seward.
John Seward, move Mass.
Thank you, John. Amira Patterson.
Good afternoon, Amira Patterson, Transportation Planner at the MBTA Advisory Board.
Thank you, Amira. Anna Christina Fregosa.
Anna Christina Fregosa, Boston Society of Civil Engineers.
Thank you, AC. David Montgomery.
David Montgomery, Town of Needham.
Thank you, David. Franny Osmond.
Franny Osmond on the League of Women Voters. Also, but the Lowell Regional Transit Authority.
Oh, great, thanks, Franny.
I happen to be from Acton.
What was that?
And I happen to live in Acton.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so John McQueen.
John McQueen, move Massachusetts.
Okay, thanks, John. And so now I'll call out staff. Sam Taylor.
Yes, Sam Taylor, Performance-Based Planning and Programming Manager for MPO staff.
Thanks, Sam. Ethan LaPointe.
Ethan LaPointe, Transportation Improvement Program Manager on MPO staff.
Isn't Aaron McGuire?
Hi, Erin McGuire, staff to the Boston Region MPO.
Aaron, Betsy Harvey?
Betsy Harvey, Transportation Equity Program Manager for the MPO.
Thanks, Betsy. Bradley Putnam?
Bradley Putnam, I'm manager of the Long Range Transportation Plan for the Boston MPO.
Thanks, Bradley. Tegan Tyke?
Hi, Lynn and everyone. Tegan Tyke, the Executive Director of the staff to the MPO.
Great, thanks, and Stella, and Leonard Higgins. I'm representing the MBTA Rider Works Committee. So as I went down the list, I didn't see anyone from the public, but if you want to make a comment on behalf of someone from the public, now's the time to do so. Just raise your hand electronically. All right. So in the spirit of making comments on or reviewing the comment letter in preparation for submitting a comment letter on LRTP, since Betsy, and I want to express my appreciation for Betsy and Bradley for attending the meeting on pretty short notice, because when we were developing the agenda for this meeting, when I was asked, we want anyone here from staff, I was thinking, nah, we'll be fine. But as I was going through this, composing my letter, I certainly came up with some questions that I wanted to ask. So I asked if they could attend, and they're here, but Betsy can only be here for the first half hour. So right now, if you have any questions that would be geared towards Betsy, specifically the DI analysis and the needs assessment, just let me know. You can raise your hand. Okay, so then I'm gonna go. Oh, so yeah, okay, Franny. Yeah, sorry, I was looking for electronic hand. All right, so Franny, yes.
Sorry, of course, my father calls us. Let me decline. I just wanted, I would love actually to hear comments, like if Betsy could comment on how you handle the sort of contradiction in needs, or maybe the variation in needs between the outer towns and the cores of the RTAs that are in our region and the MBTA. How they're addressed in the long range transportation plan.
Do you mean specifically through the needs assessment, or more broadly in the
plan? In the plan. When I look at the whole picture of the plan, did you find that you had to look at questions in a different way, whether you're looking at a place with fixed route and high population versus the outer areas?
I mean, Bradley can speak to the plan in general. I think for the needs assessment, all of that feedback, whether we're kind of geographic agnostic. If people provided feedback about a specific area, then we recorded that, and that kind of became part of the needs assessment. If there was, or if they had an opinion about the entire region, it didn't really, that was less the point to assert a particular, to have a particular view on balancing different types of views, but rather to present all of the views that we could kind of gather, and kind of the idea being that you use that information later on to make decisions, but more importantly, just to have that information there, regardless of where it was geographically, or whether it was contradictory. Because I can completely understand. I think in some ways, for sometimes certain viewpoints are contradictory, or certain desires are contradictory, and you sort of have to weed through that and figure out what is the priority. But need assessment didn't particularly take an effort to do that. I think with the goals and objectives in the long range plan, certainly we see that as stating that we want to reduce single occupancy vehicle trips. We want to increase transit and other multimodal modes of transportation. But again, I think that even there, the goals and objectives are geographically agnostic, and kind of we sorted through all the information that we got from any and all sources of public engagement and other sources to determine what was kind of the overriding trends and interests, and also kind of what are we hearing from the MPO board itself and from as staff, what are our priorities. So hopefully that kind of came through in the goals and objectives, but I don't think we really wanted to have a clear distinction between different geographic areas, even though in some cases there might be other priorities over other transportation priorities. No, Bradley, you don't have anything else to add?
Yeah, I think I would say that part of the attempt in the plan was to synthesize the needs of the various constituents that make up the region, because there are 97 cities and towns in the MPO region, and the towns vary tremendously in population. Boston was 700,000 people or something like that, and Carlisle is 5,000 people, something like that. And so I think our region represents not just, I think, Franny, your question about the different size transit agencies is similar to our different size municipalities. That we have the MBTA that serves a large number of customers, and then we have the smaller regional transit authorities and smaller TMAs that serve smaller numbers of customers. And similar to the large towns and the small towns, we have large transit agencies, we have small transit agencies. And I think the vision that is in the draft long range plan and the investment programs that are put in the draft plan are meant to integrate those various interests. Because there are people from small towns who travel to the large cities. There are people from large cities who only stay in the large cities. There are people from the large cities who travel to the small towns. And so to Betsy's point, I think it's meant to be sort of synthesizing the various needs of the different component parts of the region. Does that address your concern?
Yeah, sometimes I feel like we need different plans for the different types of needs, but yes,
we do need different plans for different areas, because the modal movement of
Excuse me, Dan. I mean, I'll call on folks to talk, right? So just hold on. Yeah, I appreciate that. But just I'll call on you. So because people may be going in order, or may have an order that we want to call folks in. And also we do devote the first comments to members of the advisory council, and then people who aren't, go afterwards me. So I do see Anna Christina's hand up, and then John McQueen's, Anna Christina.
No, I was just going to add to Annie's point. This is what I've been, for Annie's point, I've been trying to say about as far as continuity. I've also wondered, having all the various components working together, like who knows what the overall picture is, and is it necessary? It's a big job. So, but this is what I've been trying to, I've been wondering as well, but I don't want to get us off topic or waste our time. So sorry.
I apologize. That's fine. No. And maybe that's something that we'll integrate into the letter, John.
Thank you, and I appreciate all the hard work of trying to pull all these disparate parts of the objectives and goals together and try to make some sense out of it. It is tough. However, I kind of am left empty to some degree, because I kind of feel as though we've done a nice politically correct job of checking all the boxes of things that should be done in the areas that should have it done in. But I don't think we've walked the talk necessarily in terms of forming programs or program areas that are necessarily going to have the priority to address even some of the objectives, clearly, equity, for instance, or resiliency, or things like that. And I felt that to be true also in the UPWP, where I felt, and overall, I guess I feel that a really true vision, if you want to call Destination 2050 a vision, the vision that we have from our section of Massachusetts has got to have transit really as the core improved vehicle, and almost on an equal plane with, because it has to catch up in terms of getting ridership. And I think that's something that needs to be projected, and we haven't put any measurements or metrics on it. I think that metrics, for instance, mode share goals and gains may be based on a base of 2015 and moving forward in increments of 5 years. What do you envision our programs generating in terms of changes in mode share? I mean, we're trying to get people out of single occupancy vehicles, but to do that, you're going to have a vastly improved transit system. And I don't see that in the alignment of budgets. And the transit system would also highly impact, if we're looking at separate areas. Okay, we have to do a broad brush, but there are certain areas that are going to have more need for higher transit and bus, for instance, versus subway or commuter rail, or things like that. And they might benefit from DMUs or EMUs, but we haven't even seen an address of new vehicle types like that. But the balance, I haven't seen it there. And it all has to, also then tie back to, if transit is going to be a priority, which we've said in the past, what are our ridership numbers going to look like? And that's going to have to be backed up by improvements in service and reliability, which are the Achilles heel right now. And if we don't overcome those fundamental things with either investments in this or all the other programs, we're not going to have much. So I feel we've talked the talk. We haven't necessarily walked the walk. In UPWP, I didn't feel we emphasized transit as much as we should have, because there were clear near-term things, like, for instance, interchangeability of fares. That's huge, and that's huge even in an equity standpoint. Also, the resiliency wasn't addressed, although that's, that was left off. So I just don't see us necessarily tying back to meet our real objectives in a vibrant, robust, long-term 2050 plan. What's it going to look like? I want to see what it's going to look like and evolve from and into. I just didn't see that. And for instance, the investments, I see a dramatic imbalance and maybe misinterpretation of some of the investment areas. For instance, complete streets and intersections, great, address pedestrians, bicyclists, I'm all for that. Congestion, and hopefully throughput for buses and things like that, and single occupancy vehicles. But that's, between the two of those, that's like $1.9 billion out of that whole. And there's really a lot of redundancy, because complete streets does address, in most cases, in many cases, intersection improvements. Okay, they can't be necessarily looked at in isolation as a little compartment. I think those could potentially be reduced to some degree to help fund greater degree in transit. I mean, what was transit's 250 million between now and 2050? I'm sorry, I'm not seeing us addressing what our critical needs are and the ways in which we're going to do it. Anyway, that's just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm muting myself a lot. There's a little bit of background sound, so there'll be times when I'll be talking and still unmuted. So hopefully won't happen too many times. Dan.
Yeah, we have issues with localized transit mass movement of people, as well as distance here in Charlestown, because we ourselves are a peninsula, in fact, even more of an island. And as such, we have to deal with our own transit issues that we have just getting from one side of the community to the other, because we have a giant hill, actually two hills, Bunker Hill and Breeds Hill, if anyone doesn't know the area. and crossing over for the community is quite hard because it is such a huge hill. So we're trying to work on something there using some newer technology, eventually autonomous, but not directly. It will be manned to start with, but these people movers, we call them a microbus, to move people around within the locality, as well as what we call first, last direction of the mass transit options that we do have available to us. We have the Orange Line, but it's at a distance from where most of the population resides. And then we also wish to get over to the Green Line. So we've been working on how to make that all happen. And we have a design, and I think it's very positive and not expensive, which is important too. But we still need to get some infrastructure built. We need a new bridge built to get us across the rails of the commuter rail and the Levitt Circle transit paths that are in the way, as well as getting on the Gilmore Bridge a better transit for the people, because it's so narrow. It's barely 3 feet wide. And we now have a huge population in Cambridge and Cambridge Crossing that is trying to get to our Orange Line station, which I'm happy to let them get to it. But it's not wide enough for us leaving while they're trying to get through too. So we got to deal with small stuff as well as big stuff. And the big stuff in our case is Everett, because our Rutherford Ave is a very narrow space. It's already built up on both sides. We're trying to get better transit down it with, we already had a design 2019, which was shelved because of, I think, because of Everett's changes. But we don't want Silver Line going down that pathway because it actually will make things worse for us. And this is where we would rather have the reestablishment of what was originally designed when the Orange Line was taken down from the L method onto the new direction to Medford. And there was already in place, in designed, an extension into Everett, and we want it built. As simple as that, because that solves their problem, because they have a huge stadium that's going to be built there and a huge open land industrial space that they're looking at developing into business and housing. And that's where these people want to go and come from. It's going to be through us. And we can't handle the load we have now because we only have 3 egress points across Rutherford Ave. So that's where my problems are. But I realize mine may not be the biggest ones because distance for the regional area, let's say Wakefield and likewise, to get into Boston is difficult. The buses are not necessarily running at such a clockwork arrangement. I don't know if there's an easy solution to that, but getting more rapid transit or commuter rail that is sustainable, I think is the right direction for that. That's my thought.
All right, thank you, everybody. So just preliminarily, I'll say to all these comments, I think it's going to be important for us to keep up the discussion about the LRTP, in the fall, so we'll probably wrap up this process as the MPO officially, when we sign off on it in August or September. But I think we have some momentum here, and I think we should really keep the discussion going in a way where we're trying to delineate the needs more ourselves, and also some solutions. Right now, I'm going to say if we could focus a little bit more on comments that we want to make in respect to the letter, that would be great, but I'm not going to say that's all we have to discuss now. I can certainly listen to what people say and try to integrate that into the draft version of the response. So for me, the question I have is kind of technical, Betsy, and it has to do with the DBDI analysis. And if you can go to table H1A, it's just one example question I have. So in the second column, which is the E+C scenario, there's a range of values, which I get. That's your uncertainty error range. On the RP scenario, so the RP is recommended plan. I don't see a range on those values. Why is that?
Because we could add a range.
Okay, right.
What we're trying to how to interpret that is if the range for the E plus C plus or minus 372 overlaps with the expected value, then that would mean that they are very close. The values are very close as to be indistinguishable, methodologically speaking, analytically speaking, from each other.
Right.
So we could, I mean, it's more of a choice of how we decided we wanted to kind of present the information,
right,
to interpret it. But there are ranges associated with that.
Yeah, I mean, and I can understand how not having them makes it a little easier to a certain extent to present the data, but not having it makes you wonder why it's not there, and because you know that there has to be an error range associated with that data, and for me, it's like you can tell when something's really significant when you factor in both of those error ranges, and there's real separation. And so I don't want to suggest an appendix to an appendix, but or a footnote to the appendix, but at some point, in some way, it'd be good to see those error ranges, for the expected, and the reason I wondered about that is because in the fifth column, the expected difference range for the expected difference in the range for non-EJ. So there isn't a range for the non-EJs. Why is that? Because the population is too small, or what?
It's the same. It's the same.
Okay.
So yeah. I understand your point. It's something we could definitely consider.
Because then when you had it for the non-EJ, and you didn't have it for the EJ, it's like, okay, so what really is going on here? Because then maybe say it's a sample size so small that they don't have, and I was like, yeah, that can't be the case. But then I thought maybe it is. So then I was like, I gotta talk to Betsy. So it's like, Stella, can you please get Betsy here so I can ask these questions? Okay, all right, and okay. So I in the letter that I composed, I did say that I think it would be helpful at some point to maybe take the reader through the way that they should interpret these charts. I'm kind of thinking back to the analysis that was done for the DBI impact by CTPS with respect to the Better Bus plan, and in that one they created like an abstract example and just took you through a step by step, so that it's like, well, here's this data, but this is how you should this is how you can understand it better, and I think that would help the reader, and maybe for me, I had a little more struggle because I was trying to wrestling at why am I not seeing a range on the RP, and then why am I only seeing a range on half? And sometimes when I have these little questions running in the background, they stop me from some absorbing information, but I still think it would be helpful to people who are perhaps a little less used to looking at this kind of data, so that's that, and when I was reading, and I'm trying to see if I can find one case, I saw cases where you used the word expected, and I'm wondering if the right word was expected versus projected, and I'm sorry, I can't come up with one right now. I mean, maybe when someone else is talking, I could go through my notes, because I think in my notes I had a page number listed, but I'll stop. So that was helpful. So thank you very much. And in my comments, I did say that, yeah, it seems like we did have a number of metrics in which there was a finding. And so I know the MPO's policy is to figure out ways to mitigate, through tips and maybe other ways. And it's because we had so many of them, I thought that I feel that it's a bit of a problem, and maybe it's just, I'm not asking you to comment on it unless you want to, but I guess maybe the only comment I was asked is do you think that the failures, and I can go back and look at this a little more myself, is that they are relatively small, given the amount of time that we're projecting over? I mean, we try and project over 20 years, which is going to have a lot of uncertainty. And if the fail is relatively small compared to that range of time, is it something that we should be less concerned about?
Yes, I think it's kind of a nuanced way of looking at it. On the one hand, we don't want to perpetuate inequities, right? And that's why we have a policy that is pretty tight, that any expected impact, outside of our margins of error would be a significant impact, regardless of the actual size of the impact. But on the other hand, right, if it's in some cases like a travel time inequity or travel time disparities, we're very small and fractions of a minute. And so, yes, I think that's definitely part of it, is the fact that we have that disparate impact policy that is pretty conservative. And we did that, we talked about this certainly during the development of the policy of what kind of morally or where we fall, would you rather have false positives or false negatives? And we felt it was better to err on the side of caution and have more false positives. It's not going to hurt anyone to improve the transportation system for EJ communities, right? That's only going to be a good thing, even if even if by chance we have a false positive disparate impact. So we felt so I do think that's part of it. But I also want to just kind of clarify that it's not necessarily a bad thing to have disparate impacts. I mean, these are 2050 impacts. These are not things that are happening right now. So we need to keep that in mind, that this is not, an estimation of the current conditions in the system today. And it also is a flag for us, an opportunity for us to get ahead of things and say, this is something that could happen, and we want to get ahead of it through other, our TIP investments. And so, there's kind of intimidating maybe language around disparate impacts sometimes, and they're not something we want, but also it's not a situation, disparate impact policy also applies to a whole host of other things that are perhaps more immediately damaging if not addressed. Whereas in this particular situation, these projects are not built yet. They're not, most of them aren't in the TIP yet. And so for us, practically speaking, it offers a flag for us to say, okay, let's be proactive and do something about it. So I just want to kind of add that and for you to keep in mind that we don't want disparate impacts, but it also isn't a situation that is particularly, immediately dire compared to some other situations where disparate impacts would in fact could cause harm. Whether it's in like the siting of particular facilities, dangerous facilities, or that might harm EJ populations in terms of like air quality and things like that. So it's just the particular situation in which this disparate impact is applied that we just want to keep that in mind. And that's why we recommend addressing things through the TIP, because that really is where the rubber hits the road and where we can be the most effective at making sure we are making things better.
All right, thanks. So I want to go back to that H1 chart as a table, as an example for me to better make sure I'm interpreting things correctly. But before we go back to that, I just want to stop and find out if anyone else has any questions or comments that they want to make on this or anything else that Betsy can answer before she needs to leave. Okay, and so back on that. So in that that fifth column with the expected difference, so I'm trying to, so let's say on the minority row, so we have the recommended plan values and they are outside of the range, for with the margin of error, for the E plus C scenario, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then the expected difference, so what is that really? So
it's kind of like a two-step process, or two-step process where we want to first screen for whether there is any whether there's any overlap, where do we expect to see an impact at all. And in that table, based on the margins of error, based on that. And yes, in this case, yes, we expect that there's a big enough difference for there to actually be a mathematical statistical difference between these impacts. And then we look at what that difference is and what direction that difference is going. And what we see is that, the access to jobs is, for minority populations, expected to decrease less than access for jobs for the non-minority population. So you have taken the magnitude and the direction of the expected difference. And in that case, we would not expect to see a disparate impact because when we're comparing the impacts between those two population groups, the minority population is expected to get less of a decrease. So we're not looking at the absolute value, we're comparing the two populations. So even though it says negative, we're like, oh, we don't want to have a negative. It's negative, the people who perhaps might be losing access to jobs. But compared to the non-minority population, like that's less of a decrease in, less of a reduction in access. And again, these expected differences is very small. I mean, there are millions of jobs in our region. So just put that in perspective, not to minimize the fact that it is a loss of jobs, but to put that in perspective that there are lots of jobs.
Yeah, so. No, I get that. Yeah, it's like we really, orders of magnitude in terms of effect. But I'm sorry, I just can't let this go. How do I calculate that minus 7788? I mean, just where's it coming from?
So if you subtract the RP or E plus C minus RP scenario, you get 780. You get that value. Yeah.
All right. It is as simple as that. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Thanks for that.
Okay.
So for some reason I just couldn't get myself there. I was doing it, I was doing it row to row instead of what's in row, so okay, well, good. Sorry. So like I said, sometimes I'm just dense, and I was.
No, it's not intuitive. I appreciate the feedback. It's something we could definitely perhaps improve on, is how to kind of explain this more.
Yeah, but sometimes the read is just dense. Sometimes at this time I was just dense, and so, but yeah, and once again, though, I think it would be, and though this would make it easier for someone, but for me, it's like if we did have the margin of errors, on the expected, it would help me, realize better understanding if there was a real difference. But can you give me just a quick sense as to whether the margin would be roughly 372 or so on the recommended plan, or would we expect there to be a significantly different margin on the recommended scenario versus the E plus C scenario?
It's going to be pretty close. I can't say exactly if it's within, it's pretty close.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I would imagine it would be, but if you were going to say it was radically different, it'd be like, well, why? So okay, good. Well, thank you. That's helpful. So I really appreciate it. So So anything you want to say before you need to take off, Betsy?
No, I can stay for a little bit longer. Actually, my meeting was canceled, so
okay,
I can stick around a little bit.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you. And
Sure.
so anyone else want to say anything? All right. Wow.
I did really fast, Lynn. I was actually trying to type it into the comments, but just really fast on. Well, I don't know if Betsy needs to stay for this, but was there any way in our draft there was no language on to hopefully see a beginning of a mentality where we're going to weight projects that show an operations portion and a life cycle portion? Didn't we say we were going to try to work that in somehow to the comments? Going forward, we want to see more weight towards projects that are starting to come into that. Just the beginning. It's the beginning of it all.
Okay. And so that is an omission on my part, and I need to add
No,
that
I don't know if there's any easy language to do that. I'm bungling it as it is.
Yeah, no. Well, that's the whole purpose of doing this. I mean, just review the draft. So that was an omission. I need to put that in. So yeah, thank you. I'll figure out how to put it in. And it may be added at probably drop it into the conclusion part of it. But if you think of a better place to put it, let me know. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Anything else? All right. So, and so, with respect to the needs assessment, there are two elements of it that makes me want to see a whole lot more. And one is the extent to which we have gotten input from a wide range of people in the area. I mean, it'd be great if we could say that we got input from each municipality, in the region. And to the extent we didn't, figure out why we didn't, and what we can do. It's great for us later on. Figure out what it is that we could do to get input from those municipalities. And then there's the nature of the input that we're getting, and then on top of that is then what kind of needs assessment do we develop from the experts, which I will call CTPS, and because it's what people think they need, feel they need, and can prove that they need, and then there's another layer, that would come from those who have hopefully a better view of the whole regional system, and can integrate that into the whole system, and then say, but this is what we really need as a region. Those can exist side by side, and I think that can inform those of us who are making decisions, how to make better decisions, and hopefully it can even help me. And by that, I mean, it's like decisions with respect to what we fund, but even those who are making decisions as to what projects to put forth, it can help them determine, which projects to develop, from inception, through various levels of design. So I just really feel that that's why I kind of really wanted to really get my teeth into the needs assessment, so that we could kind of do an evaluation on the needs assessment process itself, and not simply take the conclusions that were given from the needs assessment and go, okay, well, that's fine. So when it's available, that will be the kind of input you'll be getting from us. And that's one reason I say that I think a lot of times with these processes, when they're over, especially these multi-year processes, when it's over, it's like, okay, done. We'll wait a year when they start it up again and start thinking about it slowly. But I really want us to keep the momentum going on this, especially since we're still waiting for the story maps and a little more detail on the needs assessment. So
Len, I could just provide a little bit of thought on the needs assessment. To the points you raised about who we talk to and how it's used. I believe in Appendix C of the LRTP document, there's a pretty comprehensive list of input sources to the needs assessment. So who we got feedback from and when and how. And to the point about municipalities, I mean, we do meet yearly with all of the sub-regional groups convened by MAPC, which provide forums for the municipalities within each sub-region in the region to discuss needs as well as other MPO work. And then also just to flag that the advisory council is a big source of input to the needs assessment too. We do track your comments and flag them, and it goes into all of that. So I think if there's interest in sort of playing a more active role there in sort of the development of the needs assessment, it will start again, this coming year for the next LRTP. So we can definitely keep that thread going if that's of interest. But just wanted to flag that there are many sources of feedback that go into it, and while it's hard to sort of list everything and provide specific context around everything. Hopefully, the description in Appendix C sort of starts to help that.
Yeah, well, yeah. So it tells me what events took place, and what where polls were, surveys were given me, but we get I think overall in all the document, maybe a couple of tables and a couple of charts, and I'm just looking for a lot more detailed information, data, as to the input that was given, and get a better sense, as to where in a little more detail as to where it was coming from, so that we have a better sense, if we're getting input from a wide variety of people, and yeah, there are the intercore meetings, but are all the members showing up? Are we at those meetings getting input from all of the municipalities in those sub-regions, or is it just a few? So it's just really more of a deep dive into the data and the needs assessment to make sure that we are getting a good sense of the real needs. And then once again, I like to see the extent to which the staff is then giving its own input as to what the needs assessment of the region are, because I think we need both components, the public input / professional input, municipal professional input, and then we need I think the professional input from the MPO staff, in which I have a lot of confidence. So John McQueen.
Yeah, I concur with you, Len. I don't think we're really getting a very representative view from what we call the public. Even the sub-regional groups are fairly filtered in terms of what they get from various meetings, which largely are populated by people who have an axe to grind or an advocacy group or something like that. It doesn't necessarily reflect, I think, a community's or a region's canvassing of the population. Either they're very satisfied with what they have, which tells you something, or they're just, the inertia. They just don't, they think things are going to be just fine or something. But we're not really getting the full population's point of view in terms of needs, whether it's community connections out in more of the outer areas, or some of the needs in some of the environmental justice communities. I don't know that we're getting the deep dive, as you're saying, in terms of the people who, Joe Plummer, Joe had, Bruce, hedge fund manager, or whomever. Restaurant workers, hospital workers, the people who possibly need to depend on transit. We hear a lot about the problems because those are real, and that's what's keeping the mobility and the mode changes at bay right now. We're not really realizing what we set out 10 years ago in terms of mode shifts away from single occupancy vehicles and a bigger reliance and usage, happy usage, not grudging usage of transit. So, but I think if we were able to somehow, I know it costs a ton of money, but to get more of a canvas of the true needs away from just more of these self-interested groups, we might maybe enrich our needs assessments.
Yeah. And I wasn't saying that I'm not saying that there's I hear what you're saying, John, and I wasn't saying that there is a gap. I'm just saying I don't know what it is. I mean, and at the level of detail, meaning that I would like, in order to give me confidence, of the diversity of input. I just don't know.
I guess I'm saying there is a gap.
Okay, I hear
and I think Dan might agree.
And so,
and possibly Franny as well. So anyway, that's it.
Yeah, I hear it. So, and I was just being short because I felt as if I went ahead of Dan. I'm sorry for that, Dan.
There you go. I'm sorry, muted. Yeah, I agree with John. Right on the money. We have so many dispersed populations. What their jobs are and when they need to move about. It's hard to come up with a simple flat piece of paper to describe all those movements, as well as where they're moving. You have people that stay very small within the small space. You have others that have to travel quite far. Here in Boston, we're an island almost to the core of the city, and we only have so many limited ways in and out. So our needs are radically different than someone out in Winchester, Lowell, or otherwise. It's radically different. So, and then besides that, you have the different social economics of the different people. A truck driver is going to be different than a baker, as an example. So it's not an easy thing to try to whittle down, and trying to find good input to just get into this is also very tough, because I fell upon you. This was not my intention to get so much in at this high level, but it's something that I don't think many people know about. That there is a possibility of input. Whether in my case, I'm a retired individual. I have no any person that I have to speak to or responsible to other than my community. And that's all I care about, is all of our community, not just a set group of the community. And it's important to be able to deal with that. And not everyone can do that. And you have people that are going to be bending the arm of individuals to push their issues or their concerns. So it's not an easy thing to do. I'll admit it. Even I've been asked to back somebody or back this project up because my advocacy. So I don't have an easy answer, but I think more work in trying to get people involved just at the local level, I think will help you find people that can speak more educated on what their concerns are at that space. And hopefully they can bring forward not only what they see, but what their community collectively sees or needs. That's my point.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you all. That's very much heard and understood. And just to be very clear though, the needs assessment does include and incorporate feedback, not just from engagement we do for the long range plan, but really all of the engagement activities that we're doing over the 4 years of development for the LRTP, as well as other processes like the TIP, like the UPWP, where the public gets involved and provides comments. So, while there still very well are gaps in those sources of feedback, it's pretty wide ranging in both topically as well as for engagement activities. But certainly we understand that there are gaps in the people that we reach around the region, the communities that we reach, and we definitely want to work on remedying those. We're trying to build more and better evaluation of our engagement and the feedback we receive into the program. And I welcome these conversations and ideas from this group as well as how we can do a better job of reaching folks.
Yeah. Thanks. And so I'm kind of understanding better how the approach to needs assessment is being undertaken. And so it's I guess what I'm getting at is it'd be good for us to have a handle on how the MPO is assessing the way that it does the needs assessment, so that we can comment on it. And now I was coming at it more from I just want to see more of the data that you are taking in the various ways that you are assessing needs. And so and maybe I'm just kind of stuck on the last needs assessment where it really just kind of laid out the needs, the various components of the system in a very big document where I could easily refer to it. And then, I don't remember the extent to which it footnoted and the data points that it provided, and linked them to discrete events. And I guess to the extent it didn't, it would probably be something that I would have wanted, but it may not be the way that we approach things. Or may not be feasible to do that in the way that we approach things. I just need to think about it some more. But as I said in the comment letter, when the story maps come out, I will eagerly devour them and then make some hopefully more helpful comments as a part of this group, because I think once we see them, it'll be a topic of a advisory council meeting. So, all right. Okay, so I got some good directions from AC about what I need to add to the comment letter, and I'll get that in the next version of it, which I'm going to try and do today before another meeting, just so while it's fresh. But I'm planning on wrapping up writing the comment letter by Friday, and I guess I just need to know if people are fine with the way that it's headed now, because I'm going to be asking for a vote on the letter as it is with some minor revisions. The minor revisions are really going to be clearing up typos, tightening up the language, making some sentences just read more smoothly, but not really changing anything fundamental. But if there are some fundamental things that you want to see done, let me know, like Anna Katrina's comment about an omission. Okay.
I thought it was good. If you can figure out a way to work that language in on operations and life cycle costs, that'll be kudos to you.
That's fine. If nothing else, I can just tack it on at the end. It doesn't have to be elegant, as long as I think the important thing is to get that message across. And so yeah.
I just hate the idea of planning for planning's sake without considering into the future, really planning.
Yeah, no. That was a good comment. I'm really sorry that I did not put it in, because I remember agreeing with it when you said it. So. All right. Okay, Well, so I'm gonna need to call on someone to make that motion, and then someone else to make that second, and then we'll have a vote.
I'll make a motion to accept the letter with specified amendments, just as discussed.
And I see a hand from Dave Montgomery.
Oh, yes.
That was just a second. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. It's okay. Fine. So just wanted to hear you say it, David.
Yeah.
So motion by AC Fregosa to accept the letter with recommended edits, amendments, and a second by Dave Montgomery. I guess we'll call it a quick roll. Stella?
Sure. Lynn Diggins?
Yes.
Franny Osman?
Yes.
Thank you. John Seward?
Yes.
John McQueen?
Yes.
David Montgomery?
Yes.
Anna Cristina Fregoso?
Aye.
Okay, that carries unanimously.
Yeah. And now that we've voted on the letter, about it, I'm going to actually direct to Bradley. Bradley, I think I probably can take out the comment relating to the table of contents, right? Because those are going to be in the next version, right?
Correct.
Okay, great. Just making sure, So thanks. So anything you want to say about the process or our comments on Bradley?
I look forward to seeing the complete letter.
Okay, all right, thanks. Okay, so next on the agenda, I think is, can you tell me, Stella, is it election committee request? Yeah. Okay, so it's that time of year. Actually we're doing it when we should do it this time. And so we need to put together a committee of folks who are going to put forth candidates for chair and co-chair. So that election will take place in October. So they'll put forth candidates at the September meeting, and then we'll do the election in October meeting. And so it'd be great if we could get at least 3 people to be a part of the committee.
Oh, a lot of takers here. I can help again as needed.
Okay, AC.
Now Franny will probably. You and Franny are automatically part. Or
well, no, I don't think so. So I was not going to be part of it. I think normally the chair, isn't a part of the committee. I think, and I don't think the co-chair either. So so non-elected members can be a part of the committee and then recommend themselves. But I think the general policy is that if you are the chair or the vice chair, you're not part of the election nomination committee.
Okay, that does look like I will need to be there for this. So you can count on me, and
okay.
Please, other people, please step forward, please.
All right. If not, I'll be sending emails, begging people like I did for the tip. Like, will you please be a part of the election nomination committee? So, all right, yes,
Glenn?
yes.
Earlier on in the year, I had thought, I'll be your vice chair and consider running for chair next year, but I don't think it's what I want. So I'm willing to be vice chair again, but I'm hoping that somebody steps forward who wants to chair.
All right. Well, thanks for letting folks know that. So it helps. It helps give some focus, you know, to the search, you know. So I see David Montgomery's hand up.
Yeah, I just thought I would speak to your question about who is supposed to serve on it or not. The chair is not typically on the committee, but there is language in the bylaws about the immediate past chair, if available, is supposed to chair the committee. But in reality, the immediate past chair hasn't been available for quite a long time. So that's the if available part is more operative than anything else.
Right.
There are some designated categories within the bylaws of there should be a member of this kind of member and this kind of member and that, which might be worth consulting. I mean, I could, it's, here it is. Shall include a voting member from a citizen advocacy organization, a municipality, and if possible, a regional or state agency. So that language is worth bearing in mind.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind, you know, and of course the first requirement is a live body that can actually participate. So that's how I'll start going down the list as I kind of send out, you know, people. I mean, that's the first priority, and then the second is like what you just said there, David. You know, realizing that yeah, you know, I was just gonna give me a hard time going that I have to leave one key person off the request list because I know better, you know. But that's how it often is, you know, and that's how it is in these kind of groups. It's like everyone is doing a lot. I realize that, and so I'm not upset with anyone for not putting their hands up because everyone has their hands full, and it's better not to put your hand up, you know, than to put your hand up and not do anything. So when I do send you an email, do understand that you can say no. I'm not going to be upset. It's just going to be my additional attempt to try to get me at least one more person on the committee. You know, so is that your hand back up, David?
Yeah, I just think maybe I could take this moment just to share with folks that I myself am not stepping up, and part of the reason for that is that I am probably coming within a few months of I'll be ending my time with the council, not because it hasn't been a good time, but it's time to find new blood from Needham. I've been doing this for 10 years or more, and it's time. So that's my main reason why I wouldn't step in here. I probably won't be around with you all when the election takes place. So.
Well, thank you for everything, Len.
Yeah. Yes.
I could work with, if I'm allowed to, based on what David looked up, then I could work with Christina on looking for people.
Okay. All right.
I don't think the bylaws bar current leadership from participating in the election committee, so that should be fine.
Okay, I guess I misunderstood what David had read. Okay.
I think I was agreeing with David as well, but.
Oh, okay, then I'll remain off.
All right. Well, I think at this point we spent enough time on it, you know, and so there are a couple of people who weren't here, you know, that I will reach out to, you know, and ask them if they can, you know, be on the election committee, and then maybe come back to some of the people who are here, you know, just in case you have a little time to reconsider, you know. So next on the agenda, I think, is chair's report.
Yes, correct.
Okay. You know, so we really haven't had, you know, any MPO meetings really to speak of, you know, since our last meeting. And you know, as you know, we put in our letter for the UPWP, you know, so there's a UPWP meeting tomorrow. So I'm not going to belabor this part of the agenda. So the next, the minutes, we're going to do the minutes at our next meeting. And I guess we need to now decide if we are going to have a meeting in August or if we're going to do something else in August. And so my inclination is to take the month off, but maybe that's because of the spring that I had, so I see a thumbs up from John McQueen, but we could take the month off from meetings and do something. It used to be that we would do field trips in August. I mean, if someone has in mind someplace they would like to go, then I would say suggest that to myself and or Stella, and we just need to do it in time to plan for it at some point in August. And I guess it would depend on, to be honest, we haven't done these a field trip since I've been chair, so I don't know what the OML constraints are on field trips. I mean, the extent to which they need to be open to the public. So we'll figure that out, and that will determine the latest in which we could start planning these things, planning it. And Christina?
I was gonna say I'd love to see the Port Authority again, but I was just realizing I'm not sure if they're done with the dredging program. I thought they were finished, but I don't know where they are in that. But I'd love to see what changed. If they're getting bigger boats, I'd love to go back to the Port Authority.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I like that idea because I wasn't able to go that trip. I mean, and so I really remember, regretting that I couldn't go. So we can look into that, and then, like I said, find out what the OML constraints are, see if they see where they are. Check back with you, AC, and see if where they are appeals to you, and then if it appeals to you, then bring it to the attention of the fuller group, and if it doesn't, may still do that, but then we'll just say though, but this doesn't meet AC standards, so I'm not sure if it'll really be a good try. And so we might want to wait until they're at a point where AC thinks it'll be worth the time. But hey, if you want to go. So I don't know if I'll go if you don't go though, AC. So I'll just make that clear. So okay, all right. So we have an idea. So we'll just run with that idea. And let's I will work with Stella and try and get back to you within a week or two. You think that's feasible, Stella? We can get back to her. Okay, all right. And so okay, great. Thanks for the idea. So next on the agenda.
Next would just be old business, new business member items.
All right, thanks. Does anyone has anything? All right, and I don't have anything, so I'm gonna have like a half hour more to work on the revision of the comment letter, and so I'm gonna get those comments in that you suggested while it's really fresh, AC. So thank you again for the reminder. Thank you everyone for attending. Your input on the comments letter and the input on the LRTP in general. So. We'll see. Well, we'll see when we'll see, folks. Okay, it's definitely the next meeting is going to be in September, but we may see each other before then at the Port Authority. All righty, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
And I see a second from John McQueen. And without any objection, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
A good one.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.